Hello there. I'm honored to meet your acquaintance. My name is Lucky Diamond. I'm the author of The Soul of White Folk. Let me tell you a little about the book. It's a dramatic story of sociological fiction with human conditions that portrays the characters of a white woman's attraction powers for a black woman's lust. The timeline of this story occurred during an era of intolerable indifferences and strict financial circumstances due to the loss of a household provider, which led to a lifestyle of transactional sex and sophisticated criminal activity, until the attraction powers of stability crossed paths with the lust of instability, causing a long-term infatuated love that spiraled into an ambiance of decision-makings. But the pink roses and blue diamonds of Sherry's love became a disappointment by the harsh, rugged road of Tamika's addiction, due to the causes of Maria, a woman whose connections are affiliated with the Mexican cartel. Maria's off-base dealings seduced the mind of Tamika with experimental using and created a rift between Sherry, who sought out a disconnection against Maria, and a sacrifice for the sake of Tamika's addiction, and Sherry's promises and parental to Tamika's daughter, with an oath of threats from Maria against Sherry's cooperation with the FBI, which ended in a bloodbath for survival 40 years later. If you like to purchase The Soul of White Folks, a dramatic tale of sociological fiction, Book 1, you can purchase it from Archway Publishing Bookstore, Amazon, and even Walmart. Use the book title or the author's name. Now I will read to you an insight to my readers, so that you could get a more in-depth feeling to the characters of the book and their human conditions as well. An insight to my readers. Once upon a time, in an unremitted region known for its culture of habits, resided a single parent of economic circumstances, neighborhood prostitution. Her mental perception of speculations to the social conduct of public order was seduced during the civil rights era by an adulterous husband's attitude that believed not in sexual discrimination. Her childhood years with her biological mother instilled in her traits the necessity of providing economically for your family as a whole. Now she is cluttered with paranoia of thinking that the pushover wife who bared witness to the adultery of her husband with a maid servant will inflict the Mann Act that consequently would put her in prison or hung from a tree like her past belated husband. However, Tamika Johnson, the maid servant who had the sexual affair with the wife husband, indulged intimately in an interracial relationship with a woman of past molestation within her own upscale family household. Nevertheless, the interest at hand, Good Girls Gone Badly, became a forte of partnership that resulted in a trend of illicit intentions and critical rivalry contacts explicitly that which came from the foreign hood of a native-born Mexican by the name of Maria. Maria is not the founding thought of Sherry's and Tamika's crime wave, but she did supply whatever demands were needed. Nonetheless, the supplies of Maria's checks and credit cards became a balance of prosperity for the future of everyone's livelihood except for Tamika's addiction to heroin. Tamika's drug addiction neglected her responsibility as a mother to her offspring. It left the door open for Sherry to take on the responsibility of motherhood to 3 generations of subjected recipients. It was not an easy task for a woman of unaccustomed doctrines to be raising an offspring of the soul of black folk. Actually, Sherry found herself with an unconventional family who sees white conditions as a tradition of metaphors used to keep black people angry and confused. Sherry's adopting the soul of black folks adapted to their social issues and became her own title as the soul of white folks. If you are an ebook reader, I have book stubs for you to use. First come, first serve. You can reach me at 763-412-6465. Now I will read to you the first 3 pages of the story so that you could get a more in-depth feeling about the literature and the human conditions of the genre, which is sociological fiction. Now, as a note, the book is not written offensively against any race. It's a story written for entertaining purposes only, for movie watchers. Enjoy. Chapter 1. Shamika was born. The end of the 70s racial revolution was a crisis that resulted in the incoming 80s with a big bang of narcotics experimenting on the social lives of Chicagoans. Tamika Johnson Jr. was giving birth to her 3rd child inside the medical room of Cook County Hospital. "Push! Push!" shouted a Jewish female obstetrician. Tamika Jr. screamed out in unbearable pain. Her first 2 pregnancies resulted in boys. "It's a girl!" shouted the Jewish female obstetrician. The year was 1979. Shamika Johnson squeezed her eyelids open into the lights of life without any hysterical cries as a newborn infant. The weather in Chicago was cold. The night streets and sidewalks were packed with dirty slush and flaky white snow. Christmas was just a Kris Kringle away from the block. Tamika Jr. knew that block too well because her mother was once a neighborhood prostitute working that block, a stylish domestic whore, resembling a Pam Grier look-alike. Her mother's father was a pro-black nationalist. He participated heavily in activist movements and was found hanging from a tree along the outskirts of the Mississippi-Dixie line. How he ended up within the Delta South is still a mystery to Tamika Jr. He became a missing person to his family and supporters during one of Stokely Carmichael's rallies in New York City. But thanks to Nina Simone, a blues singer and a loyal friend of Stokely Carmichael, Her contacts located his lifeless body. Word has it that Tamika's senior father was one hell of a cultural organizer, but his lynching left the Johnson's family monetarily in a dire a predicament of outcomes that shaped Tamika Sr. to be what she became. Being the only child didn't make matters better for Tamika Jr. because the Eagle 60s were some rather turbulent times for blacks. Black men constantly suffered the cover-up tactics of racial retaliation by the white supremacist system of the government. Every rally or boycott, even riot, impeded the chances for black men to acquire an application from a white employer, to such an extent that black men sought to escape their inability to distribute the federal government's narcotics. Black mothers, for example, currently found unemployment through household work. Through the Maiden Service Agency is where Tamika Sr. built up the courage to promote her body for gain instead of giving it away to a husband whose wife opinionated black women as concubines. But much to the wife's vibes, she had no knowledge that her husband was paying Tamika Sr. for sex until that day arrived when she accidentally stumbled in on Tamika Sr.'s oral copulation with her husband's phallus in the privacy of their master bedroom, which she blasphemed this casual external adultery as sacrilegious, and even used the anti-miscegenation laws to ostracize Tamika Sr. from ever working as a maiden servant in another white family household. Tamika Sr. cared less about being fired, especially from a white woman. Her only desire during that mishaps was to get back to the housing projects where she would be protected from any conspired lynching, and knew that white women hated black women somewhat at the same degree as white men hating black men. It is a well-known historical fact. Factual observation is an experience the soul of black folks know all too well. Not a day that goes by in America that a black native-born American haven't been expressed with some type of racial gesture, whether Caucasian against Negro or interracial black against black racial pride. Blacks would be overlooked intentionally by the cultural ridicule of classism from all fields of gravity. The classism of whites, the classism of blacks, the classism of brown, the classism of yellow, the classism of red, the classism of olive skin, and most indefinitely, the classism of the chronic homeless. And the homeless crisis became a blanket for the streets of the United States of America. When Tamika Sr. arrived safely at Robert Taylor's housing projects, she immediately reached down to scoop up a handful of dirt and wiped it all over her face and back of her neck with relief, because she never expected her arrival to be physically unharmed, but seeing the livestock of street players and hustlers standing with ill will among the project building made her wish she had done something physically harmful to Miss Blonde Hair, Blue Eyes for walking in on her performing a strenuous rarity. But judging from the spirit of Miss Crowning Jewel's husband, Tamika Sr. was certain that when he awakened during the starting point of his day, he would be convinced with confidence about sharing with his male counterparts that a black woman peeled the skin clear off his scrawny little pink phallus, not to mention the foreplay of him lapping the blackness off Tamika Sr.'s hanging Garden of Eden. That's an issue black men need to bring more to the table. Then maybe, just maybe, the black woman wouldn't have much of a vindictive, mean-spirited attitude. Tamika Senior's attitude could be identified as a woman who lost a strong black man to a lynching code of the Jim Crow laws, and internally conceived the wrath of it. However, the men who had worked alongside of Tamika Jr.'s father believed that Tamika Sr. was losing her mind, but to her astonishment, and during that day and time, she never became a victim of narcotics. It seemed to be the smartest of most black activists and nationalists, whom once was Tamika Sr.'s husband's friend, that her choice of addiction was sex for money. The more sadistic Johns and tricks she encountered, mostly white men, the more the chances she played with her life. By then, the ghetto streets was growing unrestrained, with black men being labeled as a forbidden commodity to the white woman, and the white supremacist racist economic cronyism, along with their employed nepotism, didn't improve their conditions the least. Black men pretty much confined themselves within the compound project grounds of their own criminal activities and the fatherless homes of their neighborhood agenda, which were contributed by the mixture of narcotics, dilapidated ghettos, and politicians' promises, also being denied jobs constantly. Black men poured their discombobulated emotions onto the very women who kept them dry during the raining season and warm during the winter. Let's not wink at the crucial facts of black men being survivalists. No matter the circumstances, most individualized black males have always made gold out of dirtiest accountability. Black women are the ones who tagged along behind their men brewing up psychodrama. I guess the black woman is more dedicated to their men than the black man is to being the household provider. The soul of white folks. Again, if you like to purchase The Soul of White Folks, a dramatic tale of sociological fiction, Book 1, you can purchase it from Archway Publishing Bookstore, Amazon, and even Walmart. Use the book title of the author's name. Also, if you are an ebook reader, I have bookstub codes for you to use. First call, first serve. You may reach me at 763-412-6465. Stay tuned for my second book. Thank you kindly.